I'd like to call to order the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors special meeting for June the 3rd, 2022. Ms. Carmack, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Williams, if you would help us with the invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for what appears to be a beautiful day and a beautiful weekend to come. Please look over all of us and particularly the people in Ukraine. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Are there any requests to postpone agenda items, additions, deletions, or changes in the order of presentation?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask for a brief closed session on a legal matter.
Closed session?
Yes. Closed.
Okay. Do we have a motion to add a closed session at the end of this?
I move we had a closed session at the end of this meeting.
Okay. I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Closed session we'll put at behind public comments number 9. We'll make it 9A. Motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next up, County Administrator update.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I guess on the bright side, I think some of our residents this week got a notice from Firefly. Ms.
Yeah.
Carmack in District 5, did you get one?
I did not.
You did not.
I did
know
not
Mr.
get
Wood
one.
did. So Firefly is moving forward with notifications of taxpayers that to start registering early so they can be ready for it. So that's a little bit of good news for us this morning. Second topic, as a point of the meeting today, I appreciate your willingness to meet this morning. As you know, we're going through the installation of a new ERP system called Keystone. This system conversion, or these system conversions are complicated and stressful as each locality handles business in their own way. Keystone has worked with our departments over the past 12 months to install their system to meet Powhatan's needs. The tax billing is extremely complicated, and our commissioner and treasurer have worked diligently to get the system installed and to issue real estate and personal property bills. Thanks to our citizens for their patience, and thanks to Ms. Nunley and Mr. Timberlake for their hard work to get these bills issued. Today's emergency ordinance extends the penalty date for taxes paid after the due date of June 24th. If authorized, penalties will not be applied to any payments received on or before August 1. This provides some payment timing relief for our taxpayers due to the late delivery of the tax bills. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Smither. At this time, we'll open up the floor for public comment. Do we have anyone on Zoom, Mr. Smither?
Zoom is clear, Mr. Chairman.
Not seeing anyone. We'll close the public comment period. We'll go right into old business, which is the emergency ordinance. 2022-24, the extension of the tax penalty date. Any questions, any comments?
I'd like to make a motion. We approve ordinance 02022-24.
Second.
All in favor? Well, any questions, comments?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Smither, your email to us says, if everything comes together perfectly, nothing's come together perfecly, have they?
We are, yeah.
Don't, I mean, I
Exactly,
just want to be.
exactly. That's why we're here.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
right, okay. Bills may be mailed on June 6th, so we don't know whether that's really going to happen.
I think we have a better idea now than we did when I wrote the letter, but I don't think anything's going out today. So I think the 6th is probably
Okay.
a target.
So we're going to theoretically mail on June 6th. The due date is June 24th, but the due date doesn't matter other than it's an accounting transaction. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay. So people have until August 1st to pay the no penalty. How will they know?
It'll be on their bill. Both the interest and the penalty, this update today will be on their bill.
on the written in the bill, okay? We're sure about that.
Well, that's an easy change, yes.
Oh, okay. Apparently, there are not many easy changes with Keystone.
No.
There are a few, there are a few.
No.
After we get the bills out and before the 23rd or 24th, I think we should put an additional notice in the newspaper for clarity about the August 1st.
Okay.
Okay, just because some people are going to freak out over, 18 days. So that's my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
I'm going to echo Mr. Cox's comments. I received an email just the other day where a constituent wanted to be able to pay their bill because they were going out of town and they couldn't pay the bill. So I called the treasurer and I were able to cobble together a solution whereby she was going to be able to provide the best estimate of the tax for the individual so that they could write a check before they went out of town. And of course, she had it within her power and ability as the treasurer to waive any penalties, any interest, which she was more than willing to do to help the person out that was going out of town. Now, I suspect that there is more people in the county that have the same situation. Now, her email to me wasn't fun to read. I'll be happy to share it with my colleagues. I've shared it with other people. Shared it with, of course, the treasurer. But her frustration was she wasn't getting any information. She had gone out to the county website and looked for information to explain what was going on. Now, similarly, my cousin called me. And my family goes through Powhatan, old church. And she had members of that congregation asking, because they knew we were related, where's my bill? When am I going to get my bill? Because going back probably forever, the bills have always been due on June 5th. Now we moved it for the 15th and it was to the 24th. And now we're still negotiating how we're going to collect those payments. Not negotiating, but trying to resolve the issues that we have. My point in all this is we need to have information out there on the county website, explain to people what's going on so that they know. And just like the person that was going out of town, and hopefully that's going to be resolved when we get the real estate file. Now, understand that the vendor, Keystone, hadn't provided the real estate file as of just the other day. I have an email here that all of us received from the treasurer. I'm going to read it because she weighed in support of an email that we received from the county administrator requesting this meeting. She said the penalty was to be applied the day after the due date, as it normally is done, to ensure revenue would be collected before the end of the fiscal year. This was assuming that Keystone would have the tax bills ready by 5/23, as they stated would be the case. However, it's now June 1, and we still do not have accurate tax files to send to the printer. This time frame does not give the taxpayer adequate time to pay their bill without penalty, given there is no possible way to mail bills before next week. Aside from changing the due date, this seems to be a viable option to provide a grace period due to the shortcomings we have encountered. So she's in support of it, but what's illuminating about her email is the continuing problems we've had. Now, I spoke back in March, April, about the problem that we have with not meeting dates with this vendor. And I said, anytime you have the vendor programming and getting ready to implement the system simultaneously, you're going to have problems. And we continue to have problems where now it looks like in the beginning, this thing was driven by the board. We couldn't figure out whether or not we had a tax increase or didn't have a tax increase. Then we had to advertise. Then we didn't do the advertisement correctly. And now we've got the vendor on top of that not being able to deliver on their deadlines, which I'm told they were supposed to have done by November. Here we are, right at the same time where we're going in to implement the system and we're still programming. Now, what I would like to see, I'm asking the county administrator to provide me with, is a copy of the contract with all due dates, deliverables, any penalties. I want to see it. And I'm going to be asking for a closed session to discuss that because we need to know what's going on. This is no small thing. We also need to know what is the backup plan. Because the most recent bills that went out for water and sewer weren't correct in some cases. So now you've got bills going out that are much more complicated, as the county administrator said. So I'm concerned about the reliability, the accuracy of those bills. Again, I would like to emphasize, we need to get out and communicate to the public as soon as possible what's going on so that they understand. Because I'm beginning to get the emails, I'm beginning to get the phone calls, and I'm sure you will too. But they need to know. Those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And well said. And well said. Well said to the concerns of the citizens of this county.
Thank you.
And that's who we work for.
Thank
So I agree with you in your comments.
Thank
you. Yes, sir.
Chairman,
Yes, please.
could
Carmen.
we possibly get at our next meeting a representative from Keystone as well when we're looking at that? I mean, I'd like to hear from him or her, whoever the individual is.
The June meeting?
Yes, I think that would be helpful so we can, hear several sides of the story.
Mr. Chair, I also agree with Mr. Cox on the publish it in the paper for notice of the due date. So.
I agree completely. And I don't know that one time in the newspaper is I'm okay with doing it more than one time. I think, I feel as though the ability to communicate with citizens in the county is very challenging to get the word out in any way, shape, form. The newspaper is probably our best source to do that. I'd like Mr. Cox's idea of putting an ad in there. I'm just going to add that let's do it twice. Let's get it in twice. And I'm, as we did this advertising before, I'm a big fan of getting in the paper, not necessarily in the classified sections where you blend in and look like everybody else, be different and stand out and put it there so that we can create this awareness of what's going on and have as much opportunity for citizens to know. Because I haven't had the phone calls or emails that Mr. Williams references, but as he said, they will be coming. I do believe that. And I think that our situation of a person that's going out of town, it's probably not something that's, it gets compounded with what we've got going on with the new ERP system, but there's times before where people go out of town, I'm sure, and just to be able to communicate. And our website's probably a way to go about that too, and keep it updated. Maybe we can get the treasurer, Ms. Nunley, to post something on there. I know in looking at other localities' websites, they often have comments from their Commissioner of Revenue, their human resources, their treasurer, et cetera, on their websites directly from them. So I think those are all good ideas. Any other questions or comments? Do we need to
Public
do-
hearing.
It's, yes, you need a roll call. What, if you notice at the end of the ordinance, because it's being passed as an emergency ordinance.
Right.
You'll see it on your June agenda, regular meeting agenda with a public hearing.
Right.
To ratify it or reapprove it, but
Correct. Got it. Thank you very much. Roll call, Mr. Smiller.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. McClung.
Aye.
Mr. Cox. Aye. Ms. Carmack.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. So we'll open up our second public comment period. Is there anyone on Zoom, Mr. Smiller?
Zoom is clear.
Not seeing anyone. We'll close the public comment period. This time we'll go into closed session. Mr. Latchney.
whereas the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County desires to discuss a closed meeting the following matter. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel concerning a variance request at 2793 Huguenot Springs. And whereas pursuant to section 2.23711A8 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matter in closed meeting. Need that as a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We're going to closed session.
All right, members of the board, were the only matters discussed in the closed session, public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such matters as were disclosed in the motion by which the closed session was convened or heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session need a roll call.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. McClung.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye. Good. Do we have any county attorney comments?
No comments.
County administrator comments?
No comment.
Board comments? Oh, I do want to say, I want to reiterate before we all leave that the broadband that Mr. Smithers mentioned, Firefly, is coming. It's at, the mailings have been distributed. And I don't know if Mr. Cox has had any in his district. Ms. Carmack, you've had some in your district. So that's an exciting time. The broadband, the initiative is beginning to roll out. So that's my comments. And if there's no one else, we're adjourned.